Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings, fellow travelers. Welcome to OneFeather Journal Radio, coming to you live from the woodlands of Wisconsin, home to the Washaw, the people of the place of the fire. Join me now for an hour of sharing ruminations, observations, and dialogue about the possible awakening that's currently happening in human consciousness. Are we ready to experience divine contact in the year 2010? The option is ours. Let's talk about it. OneFeather Journal Radio, in collaboration with Humanity Healing Network, Home Times Magazine, and Soul Garden TV, is pleased to present an evening discussion. Greetings, fellow pilgrims, and it is March 7th, 2010. Earlier today, I had a discussion with a gentleman by the name of Steve Gooch, who has invented, created, manifested, brought forth a very exciting project that has a lot to do with uplifting the human experience on planet Earth. It's all about peace, and how we can effectively get people to focus in on that idea of peace in the moment throughout their day. So we'll be talking about 12 seconds for peace, and this conversation is spanning the globe, he being in the Sudan, and of course I'm here in my humble little studio here in the North Woods in Wisconsin. So we'll jump right into it. Here's an interview and a discussion with Steve Gooch. Enjoy. Speaking to Steve Gooch about his new adventures in sharing a vision of peace with the world. So, good morning, Steve.
Hi, Chris. Good to speak to you. It's the evening here. Actually, I'm in Sudan in Africa, so we're at different ends of the time zones here. So, but good morning to you.
Yes, well, that's one of the things that I think is kind of neat, is that we are able to span the globe and eventually, I would imagine, span the universe with our communications here. So you are in Africa, and you are surrounded by a huge amount of transition and turmoil and visions of what should be or what could be.
Yeah.
How is all this factoring into your project that you have generated here?
I guess that it does have a subconscious influence on what I'm doing with this project, this peace project. It's called 12 Seconds for Peace, and I'll talk a little bit about how that came about in a moment. But I guess where I am in the world does have a subconscious influence on where I'm going with this. It is a part of the world where there are problems. We all know about problems that there are in this region. It's widely reported in the global press, and I don't want to get too into that because everybody's got their own agenda on that issue. Suffice it to say that it is worth noting, because most people don't seem to know this, is that Sudan is a country that is bigger than the whole of Europe. You could drop Europe into this country very easily. So when people talk about problems in Sudan, or what they're talking about are problems in a small part of Sudan. There are vast swathes of this country which is relatively peaceful. I mean, where I am in Khartoum here, for instance, it's thousands of kilometers to Darfur or southern Sudan. Somebody once said to me, aren't you worried being in Sudan, with all the trouble that there is that's being reported in Darfur. And I said, look, imagine that you're in London and there's a problem in Kiev. This is how far away it is. It's like London to the Ukraine. It's a very, very long way. But obviously, it is one country, and problems in one region do impact on a much larger scale. And there are elections coming up in this country fairly soon. I think it's going to be towards the back end of April and into May. And then we'll see what direction Sudan goes in at that point. But yes, Africa as a whole has got many, many problems, and those problems, I think, are not on the whole really understood by Westerners. I mean, we tend to have a fairly black and white view of what's going on here, and in some ways that black and white view is justified. But I think there is a need to understand that things are not as simplistic as we would imagine them to be, and many of the problems across Africa do date back to the colonial era. They date back to the way the colonial powers carved up this country and split tribal groupings in half and put national borders through the middle of tribes, and a lot of what was in place here was completely ignored by the colonial powers, which put in place a pattern of internal strife, war, and a problematic situation for generations to come. And I'm hoping that Africa is starting to unravel some of those problems now. But we'll see. But my peace project. I guess I find it ironic that I'm building a peace project from a place like Sudan, which is not known for its a peace agenda, really.
Well, and with the Native American history in this country, we also have been trying to reassemble after Europe's colonial era. And so I'm very much in attunement with what you just communicated, so much of a need for a better vision of humanity and what our possibilities are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there is a need to just to be a bit more open-minded. I mean, what we see in the press in the West isn't necessarily the whole truth, and there are historical reasons for the way vast swathes of the world are at the moment, these trouble spots in the world. And I look back and I think we really need to connect with this idea that that for every action there is a consequence, and these wars don't just spring up out of nowhere. We can trace them all back. We look at problems in the Middle East, and we can trace them back to what happened in the period around the Second World War. We can trace the Second World War back to the First World War, and we can go back. We can take that chain back thousands of years, and for every war that we have, we're setting up the situation or the conditions for another war sometime in the future. And this, we've got to stop this. We're supposed to be grown up. We're playing like children in kindergarten, really.
Well, and we're motivated by self-aggrandizement and greed. Financially, war has been very profitable for a very narrow margin of the population, and because they're able to utilize resources, they're able to, further their interests and create dissension and discord and ultimately war. Absolutely,
yeah, yes, I know. I mean, greed is one of those things. I mean, greed is one of those things that we've got to tackle internally. I mean, I guess in some ways, greed is understandable as a human being. And a human being who's been conditioned by the sort of Western societies that we live in. It's easy to take on board the idea of greed and want more and more and more. I've got this car, but I want a better car. I've got this amount of money, but I want more money. Because we see wealth around us, and we see people that have more than us, and we aspire to that. So greed is something that it's very easy to respond to and get sucked in by. But and the only way really of tackling that is to start looking inside and start to realise that actually all that we need to make us truly happy is already there inside of us, and it's not in those things outside of us that we want more of.
Well, and that ties in real nicely with the project that you're working on, because something that we can approach people with in an individual way so that they can transform their vision of what they desire, what they need, and what their place in the world really is.
Absolutely. I mean, the project's called 12 Seconds for Peace, and let me just give you some background on that. I mean, my personal background is as an artist. This is what I trained in. This is how I make my living. However, since my Reiki book was published about 3 years ago, I've spent an awful lot of time using social networks on the internet to promote my work. It was part of the marketing strategy for my book at the time. So I've become very familiar with a lot of the social networks on the net, and one that I came across and started to use a couple of years ago maybe is called 12 Seconds TV. And this is like the video version of Twitter. However, unlike Twitter, where you can just type in 140 characters, hit send, and there it is around the globe, with 12 Seconds TV, you've got to shoot your video, or you've got to upload a video, then you've got to put in a title, and you've got to tag it, and you've got to put in a location. So it's a little bit more problematic than Twitter. So as a consequence, it's not so widely known, and it's not so widely used as Twitter. But it grabbed me as a potentially a really interesting artistic medium, because all artists love a challenge. I mean, part of the creative process is to try and do something that maybe others would think is impossible or so far out there that it just isn't worth attempting. And when I looked at this 12 Seconds TV network, I thought, this is a medium like any other medium. This is, whether it be a hunk of rock or a piece of clay, this social network is potentially something that I can create something out of. And I thought that the fact that you're limited to a 12-second segment of video was actually a really interesting and challenging limiting factor on the creative process. If you ask somebody to make a video on any theme and you say, look, you can have as much time as you like, it's really not that hard. But when you tie them down to a very short time span, they've got to say an awful lot in a very short period of time, and they've got to get right to the point very fast. And so I thought it would be really interesting to put together like a video collage of other people's thoughts, comments, agendas on the issue of peace. And I didn't want to define what peace was. For some peace is the cessation of war in the world. For some, it's an internal process where you become a peaceful person, and therefore eventually the world follows suit as more and more people take on this idea of becoming a peaceful person themselves. So I didn't really want to tie it down. I just put out the word peace and said, look, whatever that means to you, whatever it is, I don't care what it is, make a little video about it and send it to me. And they've started sending me these videos, and some of them have a spiritual flavour, some of them don't, some of them have sound, some of them don't. And it's really interesting to see what people are putting together and how they're personally responding to this idea of peace. And we are getting some that are looking very much externally at the world around them. Others are looking very much into themselves as the beginning point of creating this idea of peace. So I've been collecting these videos together, and we're putting them together on the 12 Seconds TV social network site, as well as on YouTube and other places as well. With the idea that we gather together all of these 12 second segments. When we have a few more, we're going to gather them together, and the idea is that we then hand these over to a contemporary artist who will then use these as his raw material. So he will then create another artwork from the artwork that we're assembling here. with the intention that that artwork then be exhibited, toured, used wherever we can possibly use it, in exhibition spaces, maybe, to backdrop to a rock band. I don't know. This is entirely up to the artist that is going to create the work and how we can market that final product. Once we've got that product and it's out there and we're charging people for this product, all of that money that comes in is then going to be targeted directly to the current project that Humanity Healing are putting together with their work in Uganda. And I'm sure there's lots of people listening to this who've become aware of the trip that Chris Bucker's made recently to Uganda to look at that project. He's got the photographs out there now, and there's plenty of information about that Humanity Healing project in Uganda. So this is where we're going to target the funds. This is a really important project that Humanity Healing are working on in Uganda, because there are so many people that have suffered in the war out there. The suffering is immeasurable. It's beyond belief what these people have gone through. And the work that Humanity Healing is doing is so critical. It is so important. And I think if 12 Seconds for Peace can, even if it can't raise that much money, if it can help raise the profile of this project, then it's doing something really worthwhile. But the ultimate aim is not only to create an interesting artwork, and for me as an artist, that in itself has considerable merit, but also to use that artwork to generate something that can provide a sustainable solution for these people in Uganda. And I'm working closely with Chris and Liani on this project. And once I get more details from them of the project, I'll be putting a lot more of that information out on the 12 Seconds for Peace blog as well.
Well, that's magnificent. And as you were describing this, I guess you could almost call it an entity that you're creating, I could see where this could become a workable solution for a lot of other groups, where you could be approaching people in the Middle East, you could be approaching the Native American situation in North and South America. I mean, this really has a potential for mutating into a lot of different variations on this particular theme.
It does. I mean, we're at the beginning of this project, really. It's been running for a couple of months. So it's early days, and it's starting to pick up steam now. And yeah, there are so many projects out there that something like this could ultimately aid. I mean, I'm looking long term now. When we've done some work with Humanity Healing on this particular project, I'm sure they're going to have other projects down the line, in various parts of the globe that this particular project could fund. And because I've left this very, very open in terms of the concept of peace, I'm not asking for a spiritual answer to this. I'm not asking for a non-spiritual answer to this. Whatever people conceive this as, it could be a political solution, it could be a spiritual solution. I don't care what their solution happens to be. I just want them to make a little video about it for me. And once we get this, because it's not tied in any way to any political agenda or religious agenda, it is very much accessible by everybody, everywhere. Regardless of their faith, regardless of their political beliefs, they can all buy into this concept of peace in one way or another. And what's interesting, actually, for me at the moment is that, having said that this has only been running for 2 months, this has just actually, the concept of it has actually in the last week just been picked up by one of the British government's representatives to the United Nations, and he's actually taking this concept to the United Nations to see if they want to buy into this, because they're really very keen on the whole concept and can see a lot of possibilities here. So I don't know how that's going to work out. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. But it's testament to the fact that the concept itself is so flexible, so open to being molded into so many different shapes for so many different particular outcomes that it is being taken up by people like the UN.
Exactly, and that's kind of an exciting concept of getting it out to the UN. A lot of the ideas that you're discussing here, they're presenting here, remind me of John Lennon back in the 70s. As he was going through his internal evolution, the central theme focused in more and more on the idea of peace, and of course that idea that he presented to the world, let's give peace a chance, because he had actually transcended a lot of his spiritual views and had arrived at a whole different level of consciousness where he wasn't really buying into anything other than just let's be good to each other. And I think that's really what you're trying to say here, is that we need to learn how to accept and embrace each other. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we do. We really need to get on with this. We're supposed to be a mature, responsible, grown-up species, but we act like kids in the kindergarten so often, and we fight over the pettiest of things. We fight over religion, we fight over politics, we fight over land, we fight over wealth, we fight over mineral resources, we fight over anything. Whatever is out there, we'll have a fight about it at some point, and it's crazy because we can't own any of these things. We're on this planet as individuals, we're here for such a short period of time, and what we're doing is we're bequeathing to our children a chaotic mess. We're setting such an incredibly bad example for the future with the way we conduct ourselves on this planet and, at the current time and in our history. I don't think there's ever been a time where we've actually acted in a particularly mature and responsible way. But I'm here in Sudan. It's an Islamic republic here, and I know many Muslims. I used to live in Egypt. I know many Muslims from there too. And one thing the West in particular has got to get over is this fear and this terror of Islam. It's crazy. These are just ordinary people. They're just ordinary, nice people that just want to get on with their lives, just the same as we do in the West. And, there's Christians here, there's churches next to mosques, and, the Christian kids go to school with the Muslim kids, and, there's no problem. It's only when we adults create a problem. We invent a problem, we fabricate a problem, we fantasize some problem and then bring it into reality. And it was never there in the first place. And then we fight over it and we accuse each other of it and we become enemies. And it's nonsense, and we should be able to transcend this. We should be able to look into the hearts of other human beings and see a reflection of ourselves there, because they are a reflection of ourselves. They are human beings. And as the Dalai Lama has said many times, every single one of us is just trying to be happy. Your enemy is just trying to be happy. The person on the other side of the fence is just trying to be happy. And once we start looking into their hearts and recognizing their common humanity, their reflection of ourselves, then we can start to have an understanding that actually it's not my enemy at all. This is actually my friend. This guy that I want to shoot is actually my friend. We should not be having a problem like we do in the world today. It's this has got to stop, and we can stop it. It actually is only a thought away. What I like about the title of this peace project, 12 Seconds for Peace, is 12 seconds is actually really quite a long time, because it's much longer than a thought, and a peace is only a thought away. Exactly. And the other thing that's going on right now is that we have technology which can be used to further the interests of war and destruction, or it can actually be implemented to create unification. And that's really what your use of the media is all about. It is, yeah. I mean, the beauty of the internet, of course, is that we can connect across the planet. I'm talking to you from Africa and you're in the States. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where this type of conversation just couldn't take place. It would be really problematic. But now, everybody on the planet can talk with everybody else on the planet. And regardless of the agendas that politicians, governments put in place,
the common people of the world are actually communicating with each other, and they're starting to understand each other in a way that perhaps they never did understand each other before. And let's be honest, we're still very much at the beginning. We're still very much in the playpen with the internet. You know, this is still a very new phenomenon, and we're only really starting to reach out and explore other parts of the world via the internet that maybe we couldn't do before. And I think this understanding, this connectivity between people across the globe will increase as time goes by, and there'll be new ways of connecting across the globe via the internet as the technology develops. And this, in some senses, is undermining the political agendas of our various governments, which thrive ultimately on setting up conflicts because it speeds up industry. Essentially, there's money to be made in conflict. But the people of the world are actually starting to get an understanding of each other, and we're starting to break down these barriers that have been put in place over generations and manipulated by the media, manipulated by governments for their own various self-interests. And I think the use of the internet, use of social media, I mean, we should be using this to break down these barriers. We should be using this to come together, to declare globally our desire for peace, to declare globally that we want this or that particular confrontation to stop. We want this to change in the world or that to change in the world. We have that power via the internet, but we need to come together. Nobody's going to listen. No government is going to listen to a few disparate voices. We need to come together as a mass on these issues and say, this is what we demand. We are not asking for this. We are demanding this because we have that right.
Absolutely, yes. And the thing I like about the 12 Seconds for Peace is that it really is formatted for these emerging generations who are very text-oriented, who are very immediate, who want things to happen very rapidly. So you can have a 12-second timeout, and it fits the paradigm that future generations seem to be moving toward. And that in itself, I think, is very exciting. It's not this long, drawn-out diatribe about peace. It's here's peace. This is how it could happen.
Absolutely, and of course, in the current climate, because people are becoming more and more internet savvy, they want information and they want it fast. They're not going to hang around. You know, I mean, one of the critical rules of writing on the internet or writing for a blog or a website is to make your point, make it fast, and do it in few words, because it's not, you know, it's the next page is just a click away, you know, and it's much easier to skip a piece of information now on the internet and go somewhere else than it ever used to be with information. So you've got to make immediate statements, and you've got to do it fast, and you've got to get to the point. And this is one of the beauties of this particular format with this project, is that most people are going to actually sit through a 12-second video. They'll sit that long. As soon as you start hitting 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and upwards to a minute, 5 minutes, you are losing a big chunk of your audience, because they are just going to click away to something else. And yeah, that's unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but that's just the way things are, and we've got to live with that. So 12 seconds, it's going to hold most people for that length of time.
Absolutely. And I think it's probably reflective also of a cultural evolution. I think that as we continue to explore potential within the internet, we're going to see a common language emerge. I think it's going to be much different than what anybody could really imagine right now. I think it's going to be more abbreviated. It's going to be more of a synthesis. And I think over the next 20 years, we're going to see people speaking this next wave of dialogue, and that I find very fascinating.
Well, it is, but also, you know, I mean, there are those who maybe have quite I don't know the word here, but maybe want to keep the language the way it is. Maybe want to see, words spelt in full, and they don't like these little abbreviations and the modern use of text-like language where everything is abbreviated to numbers and just letters. But actually, this has a historical precedent, and this actually is what we're doing here with this text language. This has historical roots, certainly in Britain, at a time where people like Byron, for instance, were using modern text language in their letters, because at the time, to post a letter, if you went beyond one sheet of paper, you were paying a phenomenal amount of money to post that letter. So they abbreviated everything. And what they were actually doing at that time, Byron was doing this, was using modern text language. They were using the number 4 for the word for. They were using the letter U instead of the word you. So this is not new. This is not something that people should be afraid of and think this is a corruption of the language. This is the language being disintegrated into meaningless rubbish. It isn't. Some of the most powerful writers in this language have used this language in exactly this form for the same reasons, for brevity, because it was not possible at that time to use the full form words. So, it is an exciting time, but we're looking at something that has actually been around for quite a long time here.
Yeah, and it's urging us to become multilingual, I think, and this alternative language is the first step in that direction. We have our core language that's based on our national identity, and like here in the United States, now we have a second language, which is Spanish, and there's this third language, which is the abbreviated language, the language of immediacy, that seems to be demanding that we learn how to adapt to it.
Absolutely, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Language has never been a static thing at all. It's a language to survive. If it's going to have meaning for the future, it needs to be flexible, malleable. It needs to be able to evolve and change. It needs to be organic, really. And if we try and pin a language down, it's going to die. And this is why the English language in particular has been so phenomenally successful and continues to be, because it is in language terms, it's the biggest thief on the planet. It will steal words from any other language and make them its own, and it continues to do this today. And this is why it is so successful. And any language has got to do this to survive. It's got to be able to respond rapidly. It's got to be able to change its form. It's got to you've got to be able to use it in many different ways. And this is what's happening with the English language now. It's going through yet another one of its evolutionary processes, really.
Exactly. And the exciting thing about 12 Seconds for Peace is that you're combining the language along with visuals, and of course that's another part of the extension of our language, because we have become so able to share visions and share imagery all around the planet.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this project is, it's a video project, obviously, but some of the contributions from there, they have sound, others don't. We haven't as yet had anybody speaking on a video other than a recorded clip that I put onto one of my own contributions for the project. But most of the project so far has either been silent visual clips, or they've had a music soundtrack of some kind. But really, it's open to this is open to people to do with as they please, as long as it fits the theme of peace. It doesn't matter what they have on there. They can have text on there. Some of them are slideshows of photographs. Some of them are video footage that they've gone out and shot for themselves. Some are animations. Some have got audio tracks where there is someone singing about peace. Others are just musical soundtracks. I mean, this is really open to whatever anybody wants to do with it. And I mean, I have been talking to Julian Lennon a little bit about this project. This is John Lennon's son, and hoping to get him on board. And although he's not committed to the project in any way at all, he's actually quite excited by the project and said that this is a really good idea. So there are lots of people out there supporting the concept, and because it is so open, this is open to anyone's interpretation of that theme.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, where's the actual repository for everything that you're collecting together here? Do we have a central place we can go to?
Yeah, well, there's several really. I mean, essentially the work, the project as it comes together is going up on the 12 Seconds for Peace blog. So you can either type into Google 12 Seconds for Peace, or the address is www.12 peace. So that's all one word. 12 seconds for peace. .blogspot.com. So you can find the site there. The videos are being uploaded to the 12 Seconds TV site, which is at, this is a complicated address, let me try and think this. This is www.12seconds.tv/channel/12 Seconds for Peace. So you can find all of the work there, but if you go to the blog, you'll find links through to the Facebook page and the MySpace page, etc.
Well, yeah, I'll be posting all of these addresses along with the dialogue we're having here, so people can immediately access this. And the other thing that occurs to me is that in a lot of ways there are ways that this project could be turned into like embassies and placed in not only knee network sites, but in network sites all around the planet where you're getting even more growth and exposure by seeing it as a peace emissary that's being implanted in various different cyberspace locations.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it can be. I mean, as I said, we're still really at the beginning of this project, and it's starting to grow. And sometimes it seems there's very little going on the blog, but the work back here behind the scenes is getting phenomenal as more and more people are approaching me about this project, and it has so much potential to be used in so many different ways. For other projects, for other groups of people pursuing their own particular issue on the theme of peace, whether that's to do with the solving of a particular point of conflict in one part of the world, or whether it's to do with the spread of a particular spiritual philosophy to do with peace. This can be applied in so many different ways, because the essential core of this project, the 12-second video, is just open to be used it's infinite. There's so many possibilities here, which is why it's such an exciting project, why so many people are getting behind this, because the potential is phenomenal.
Exactly. Where do you see things going from here now? You've got the foundation established, you're collecting all of these various threads and weaving kind of a tapestry here. Do you have any sense of an immediate next project once this is off and running?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's lots of things going on with this at the moment. One thing that strikes me with this particular project, even at this early stage in it so far, is that as these individual components come in, these little individual 12-second videos, I'm actually putting them together as a continuous video. So we're putting together a compilation, and it's fascinating to see this collage, this sort of kinetic collage coming together, and that although you can see the overarching theme of peace running through them all, it's mind-blowing to see all of these different little interpretations of that one theme all knitted together in this kaleidoscope of colour and sound. So this in itself is just, it's a phenomenal piece of work that's coming together. But beyond this, the next project, which I don't really want to get into too much detail on, but it essentially relies on the success of 12 Seconds for Peace, because the next project is of a much grander scale, and it's called Bridges for Peace. And to give you a little bit of an insight into that, I spent quite a lot of time in Lithuania in Eastern Europe over the last couple of years. Now, a tradition they have in that country, which I think it's a beautiful tradition actually, is that on bridges across the country you will find padlocks padlocked to the bridge, and these padlocks are placed there by lovers who have inscribed them with their own names and little messages of love. And some of these padlocks are very old, that I've seen some that date back to 1920s, 1930s. So, and the bridges across Lithuania are festooned with these little love messages. And I thought, this is such a beautiful concept. This is such a beautiful idea, and I'm really surprised it's not been picked up and used in other countries actually. But that whole concept of a bridge with tied to it is this idea of love, and of course associated with love is the sense of peace. And the bridge for me is symbolic of bridging that gap between different political factions, religious groupings, people on opposite sides of the fence, which peace is about bridging that divide, and to come together on that bridge and make a statement in the form of a padlock, which is permanently fixed there. You're locking into place this concept of love and peace across this symbolic bridging of the divide is such a beautiful idea that this is the next project that I want to work on. It's another art project. My background is as a sculptor, so I see this as a sculpture project. And I think of places in the world, and I think of my own country, the UK, for instance, where there is a need to bridge certain divides, social divides. There is a need in some countries for Christianity and Islam to be seen to be coming together. They are already very closely tied to each other and very appreciative of each other's existence, and they build their mosques and churches next door to each other. But symbolically, I think this bridge is a beautiful thing to have that says to the world, look, we actually bridge our divide. We are here, we're standing in the middle, and here is our statement to the world that we are together in this, because there is the padlock on our bridge that says to the world that we believe in love, we believe in peace. And I think this is a project that I want to pursue on the back of the 12 Seconds for Peace project, because it is a sculpture that any grouping can put on their land, on the grounds of their church, their mosque, their synagogue, their temple, anywhere, outside their political offices. It doesn't matter, but it's a physical, sculptural statement of their desire for peace and their ability to bridge that divide between them and the perceived other.
As you were speaking, I also got the image of the smallest level of our existence, our personal challenges in life, and the bridge over troubled water, as Paul Simon back in the 60s were making reference to. So this could actually turn into something that goes from the very personal self into the collective and into global unification. So it has a lot of different levels it can affect people on.
Absolutely, because to start the walk across that bridge, there has to be an internal desire for that walk to begin. So the peace, the love has to be something that is already manifested within oneself before, collectively, externally, we come together and hold hands actually across that bridge.
Right. Yeah, one of the organizations that immediately came to mind as we were talking about this was Unity, because just within the name of the group, there is that vibration, that essential nature that could very nicely accommodate this kind of a vision.
Absolutely, yeah, it is. I mean, it is about unity. We are all one common human family. You know, there really is nothing that divides us. You know, skin color, religion, politics. These are ephemeral, external things of very little consequence, because we are all essentially the same. We all have the same desires for peace and happiness and relative prosperity without others suffering. You know, and there is this need and desire for unity that is common to the whole of humanity, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's really where human evolution has that core desire to evolve to. I think we just have to get past the media that is committed to brainwashing us into staying in a static condition and embracing fear and strife. So overall, I think your project here is really has astonishing implications. It has really a brilliant future. The thing is just getting word out, and that's what we're doing here on OneFeather Radio tonight, is trying to get the word out. So, Steve, do you have something else that you want to communicate about, or any kind of a synopsis you want to give us?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'd just like listeners to this show to really think about, you know, their understanding and their desire for peace and their commitment to this. And in a way, I'd sort of like to echo very much the message that Humanity Healing put out, which is really the core of their activities here, and that is that we've got to become active in the world. You know, I understand and appreciate that energetically we can impact on the world, we can make a change in the world through our positive vibrations, our prayers for peace, our meditations on peace. Of course, these things do impact dramatically on the world, but ultimately we live in a physical existence. We're in a physical, material here and now. And although we can set up the energetic vibration for peace through our thoughts, our prayers, our positive desire, our overwhelming, powerful intention for peace, if we don't actually use that accumulated energy for real action of a material kind in this material world, that energy will just dissipate. Energy of its own will not bring peace to this world. We need to use that as the trigger, as the collective energetic vacuum, if you like, within which we are going to build real peace. This is an action-orientated world, and we've got to take some action. And this is what Humanity Healing are doing. They're building the vibration in Uganda to make this happen. But it isn't going to happen unless people like Chris Buck actually go out there and do some real work on the ground. And other people are going to follow on from him to carry on with that work too. So what I would like to say to people, if you have this desire for peace, if you have this intention for peace, then the whole world is grateful for the fact that you are praying for peace, that you are meditating for peace. But please do something in the physical world too. One of the things that you can do is to make a 12-second video and send it to this project, because this project is about raising hard cash to pay people to do work on the ground in Uganda to alleviate and stop the suffering of those people that have gone through so much pain in the war there. So, you know, you can do something, and you can increase the vibration for peace by contributing a video to this project. The energy around this project is growing all of the time, and it's becoming palpable, it's becoming tangible. You can feel it growing. If you're energy aware, you will feel the energy of this project as soon as you see it. So please contribute to it, build that energy for peace, and then let's use that energy to make a real difference in the world for these suffering people in Uganda.
That is a brilliant synopsis and summation of everything that we've been discussing here, and I again encourage the listeners to contact Steve to get involved in the project and to advance with this natural unfolding. It's in our nature. All we have to do is embrace that core nature and that desire to just be at peace, to just have a good life, a sense of fulfillment, and a sense of continuity.
Absolutely.
So it was great talking to you, Steve, and I'm definitely going to be continuing to promote and build more videos for the project and just generally have fun with it.
That's great, and it was good to talk to you too, Chris. It's been a pleasure to discuss this project and the work of Humanity Healing in Uganda. They're doing a stunning job out there. They really are, and people should get involved in their work on many levels. It's a fantastic organisation.
It absolutely is, and they were able to kind of do a lateral jump and address some of the issues in Haiti also. So I know that they're definitely an organization that there is a need for on the planet, and we'll continue to see them grow also.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that was the interview with Steve Gooch, which I think was actually a pretty insightful dialogue. I think that there was a lot there that has potential, and I encourage people to pursue this, try to, get involved with it on one level or another, making contribution, whether it's financial or video or both. And hopefully we can start having impact, and that's, of course, what Steve was talking about, is actually making a difference. It's good to have it in consciousness. It's good to project it out into the universe, but unless we're actually implementing these things, we're not really doing an awful lot to make it happen.